Okay, so this is my pleasure to welcome you to our seminar on Chile. And we are very happy that we have with us two distinguished Chilean scholars, Professor Paulina Astroza Suárez and Professor Beatriz Larraín, who will talk about the complicated situation in Chile and try to explain it to us. And it's my warm welcome on behalf of the Faculty of Political Science and International Relations of the University of Warsaw. And today's meeting is organized by the Students Association of Latin America and the Caribbean of the University of Warsaw. And it will be conducted by students. This is for students, and students will ask you questions and maybe comment on your explanations. So it's everything from my side. And now I give the floor to Mr. Jan Paradowski, one of the members of the Students Association, who will take the chair of the meeting. So please, Mr. Jan Paradowski, please go on.
Good evening, everybody. So today we're going to discuss briefly a very important topic for the people of Chile, which is the upcoming second round of the presidential elections. Now, the first round took place relatively short time ago, and there's some very interesting conclusions that could be made from that general election, which included voting for the future president of the Republic of Chile, but also members of the Congress and the Senate. It was quite interesting seeing the rivalization between three rival candidates, and for the first time in history, the candidate of the radically sounding Chilean Communist Party as the winner of the first round and a candidate of the, broadly speaking, Chilean left. The election was also is very interesting given the context of the 2019 Estallido Social, revolutionary situation, which one may consider, and also the presidency of Gabriel Boric, the Chilean millennial president, a former member of student associations and student groups protesting for against the neoliberal system, who nonetheless did not deliver on making Chile the tomb of neoliberalism. There's a lot to be discussed about the presidency of Gabriel Boric and how it has affected this election, and how it's affected the rise of increasingly reactionary right forces. There's also topics related to migration from Venezuela, from Peru, Bolivia, climate change, and corruption, and a huge amount of topics, not to mention obviously the ghosts of the past of Salvador Allende and Pinochet hanging over this fascinating country. But that's why we have present with us two scientists, two professors from the country of Chile, who shall explain to us this very intriguing situation and all the details of the electoral panorama and what is awaiting this intriguing country, which, as some of you, my Polish friends, may well know, was sometimes also the object of scrutiny of certain Polish politicians, because some of the politicians in Poland had a great affinity for General Pinochet. But that's another thing. Now the floor is to our distinguished guests, who shall tell us more.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jan, for your invitation. It's a really pleasure to be here with you. For Beatriz and for me, it's very interesting to speak with a Poland student in Poland, but interesting about what happened in Chile. Sometimes Beatriz and me, we are also ask what happened in Chile, because it's not so easy to understand. We have a Republican tradition, and especially in the first of 19th, because the transition of democracy was a period of relative calm. But after the estallido social, like you said, Chile changed, but it's a pendulum. Really, we have in the experience really pendular. And for this reason, I'm going to explain you firstly our system, especially how we decide who will govern in our country, because we have a political system different of the Poland system or German or French or another system, even American system. It's not the same. And for this reason, it's very, very important to know how in Chile we decide who will be the president. Secondly, it's very, very interesting in our context that, like you said, we have our second term with the one left represent of the left, but it's the first time that we have one represent of Communist Party. On the right, for the first time, we have a candidate from the far right. And this is our decision now. The second turn will be this Sunday. Then we will explain you first our system, and after what happened in the context now, political context now. If I have a problem with my English, I will ask help to my colleague Beatriz, but I will try to explain you our system in this minute. In Chile, we have the presidency, the executive branch, the president of the Democratic Republic. We have a presidential system. It's not a parliamentarism, it's not a semi-presidential system, it's not the same system of the United States of America. It's a modification of the American system with an executive with more power than the executive in the United States. This is a characteristic of Latin American presidential system. The president is both head of state and head of government. This is the principal difference between our president with the president of Poland or the president of France, for example. And he or she is elected by universal suffrage for a 4-year term. And in our country, in Chile, that is not the case. In another country in Latin America, in our country, it's not possible to be elected immediately for the re-election. For this reason, we had, for example, Michelle Bachelet 1, Sebastián Piñera 1, Michelle Bachelet 2, and Sebastián Piñera 2. In our country, it's not possible to be re-elected immediately. But it's possible to be re-elected many times. It's not, we don't have a number of mandates that we can choose a president. The Congress, the legislative branch, it's a bicameral legislature composed by two chambers of deputies with 155 seats, and they have a mandate of 4 years term. And the Senate with 38 seats, and the term in this case is for 8 years terms. The election for the President of the Republic in our country is not the same, for example, in Honduras, because in Honduras they have a problem now with the who won the election, because in Honduras the election of President of the Republic is in one term. In our case is in 2 round runoff system. In the first round, who win? A candidate wins with over 50% of the vote. If no one exceeds 50%, the top 2 candidates face off 1 month later. The winner is decided by simply majority. And this is the case in this election. Just in 2 cases, we decide in the first round the president. That was at the beginning of the transition of democracy in Chile. Patricio Aylwin in 1989, and after Presidente Eduardo Frei. That was the 2 cases that we decide in the first round the president. After that, all the time, it's we decide in the second round. That is, it's very important in our case, if the vote is mandatory or not mandatory, because we had changed our system. And now we have a new electorate. And for this reason, the incertidumbre, how to say that in English, Beatriz?
Uncertainty.
Uncertainty, it's very big for this new electorate. Why? The 2025 election is the first in the Chilean history to be held under a new system of automatic registration and compulsory voting, fundamentally altering the political landscape. Before 2012, we had a voluntary registration and mandatory voting. We changed the system in 2012 until 2023, and we had voluntary registration and voluntary voting. The result, we had a significant increase in electoral abstention. We had a local election with turnout under 40%. And this is very, very low in our country. For this reason, and after the estallido social, after the constituent processes that we had, 2 processes to give us a new constitution, but finally that was not success processes, we decide to change the vote and to have automatic registration, and the vote is mandatory voting. And this is a very, very important fact in our system. We had a Chile before the mandatory voting and a Chile after mandatory voting. And in this election is the first in the Chilean history with a automatic registration and mandatory voting. And for this reason, there are 6 million of new electors or new voters in our country, and the polls or the companies that try to know where go the vote of the people is not so very reliable, because the incertitude, I mix it with French. Bea.
Uncertainty
is very, very high. The primary motivation, the system now requires participation from a massive group that previously obtained it. This group is characterized by a high degree of dissatisfaction and frustration with the traditional political class. You know that it's a phenomenon, global phenomenon. It's not a phenomenon only in Chile, but in Chile we have the same problem in another liberal democracy. Their behavior is a key variable in the election outcome. Next, please. There. Okay, and in the first round, we had 8 candidates for the presidency of Chile. The full spectrum of Chile's political ideas. 8 candidates. Far left, Eduardo Artés, independent of the radical left, Janet Jara. Janet Jara, she won the primary election in a sector of the officialism, the party that support the government of Gabriel Boric. She won this primary election, and after we had Marcos Enrique Sominami. That was, I think, his 5 candidature of the presidency is left, the left party, independent of the left. Harold May Nichols, really strange person. He's linked with football, and I don't know if he's from the right or left, and it's not possible to say what is his ideology, because he doesn't have one. And Franco Parisi, it's a candidate that was his 3rd candidature of the presidency, but in this case he had a very, very good result in the election. And for this reason, after Beatriz will explain the importance of the vote of Franco Parisi. Franco Parisi, it's a outsider. He said no fachos, no comunachos. That's the meaning is no far right, no communist. But it's really some very, very special in our political system. Evelyn Matei, she was in the first round the representative of the Chile Vamos. Chile Vamos is a traditional right in our country. She followed the ideas in general, the ideas of Sebastián Piñera, our former president. He died 2 years ago, I think. Then she represented the traditional right party in our country. José Antonio Cast, he represents a Partido Republicano. Partido Republicano, it's a party of ultra or extreme right or far right. He abandoned the Unión Democrática Independiente, UDI. It's a traditional right party in our traditional right party in our country. He decided to form a party, is the Partido Republicano. That was his third candidature of the presidency, and according to the polls, surely, or most surely, he will be the winner this weekend. But if we, in a moment, we thinking that José Antonio Cast was the most radical right party in our country, with the idea of the far right in our country, Johannes Kaiser surgió. How do you say that in Beatriz? ¿Surgió?
¿Qué estás diciendo en castellano?
Johannes Kaiser surgió de pronto.
Rose. He came out of nowhere with an even more extreme right program. He was actually with José Antonio Cast at the beginning of his political career, but early on they had a fight, and he created a new political party which was even further to the right than this José Antonio Cast, which was already pretty far to the right.
For this reason, now in Chile, we speak about the rights, las derechas. Before that, we speak all the time la derecha, one right party, but now is in plural, las derechas, for this reason. And Beatriz will follow with what happened in the first round, and what happened now, and what will happen surely this Sunday. Beatriz, please.
Thank you, everybody. I'm just going to explain very briefly what happened in our elections about a month ago. And most of all, we're interested in hearing your questions, what you want to ask us about Chile. I think that in a way, what is happening in Chile is not very different from what is happening in the rest of the world. We have very polarized elections with this first candidate, which is Janet Jara. She is a member of the Communist Party, and José Antonio Cast, which is very far to the right, who in a way still represents that very extreme right that is still tied up in the image of Pinochet in a certain way, right? Especially for the older voters, not so much for the younger people. The younger generations have kind of torn away from the Pinochet figure. You know who Pinochet was, I guess. I hope not not so much, but you've still heard of the dictatorship we had for 16 years. And they both have a pretty typical, if you want, background in each of their respective political tendencies. For example, the communist program the title was Chile that delivers, right? That delivers what? That delivers public goods, right, in general. While Cast, this far-right candidate, which will most likely be our next president, his program title was The Force of Change. In other words, let's change this, what this left leading coalition that has governed us during the last 4 years did. Now, I don't know if you noticed in the previous slide, if you've noticed the last names of our candidates. You can see we have a very non-traditional Spanish last names. Matei, Cast, Kaiser. These are all the children of German or the grandchildren of German immigrants. During the 1890s, the end of the 20th, of the 19th century, we had a very extensive immigration program. The Chilean government wanted to develop the southernmost area of Chile. Now, I don't know if you've seen where Chile is geographically. It's kind of at the end of the south is at the end of the of South America, with very close to Antarctica. It's very rugged land. It's cold. Chileans didn't want to go and live in the southern part of Chile. So what did the government do? The government thought, well, we need industrious people, right, to come and populate the south of Chile. And who did they think, when they thought of industrious people, they thought of the Germans, very organized, very hardworking people. So they made an immigration program targeting Germans who wanted to come and live in the southernmost part of Chile. And well, as industrious as they are, they did populate the south of Chile. They created industry. They pretty much did what the Chileans didn't want to do in the southernmost part of Chile. So there is a very large population, especially among the elites in Chile, that are of German ascent. That's just kind of an interesting fact for you, because maybe you were wondering, why do these people not have Spanish last names? Because we do have a lot of children and grandchildren of these German immigrants.
You can also
Anyways,
one funny thing is that if you look at some left-leaning candidates from the Chilean history, like Radomiro Tomic, or for example President Boric, or the finance minister of the Allende government, Vodanovic, there was also a lot of Croatians. So you can also notice that it's perhaps a bit of a change, but there's also a lot of those non-Spanish sounding names present in the politics.
Right.
Not only German.
We are a country of immigrants, but the interesting thing is that the immigration that we had at one moment was all somehow due to government programs targeting certain peoples, certain countries. They wanted to have immigration. It wasn't undocumented immigration or illegal immigration, as we say now, that we have. They were all programs because Chile, geographically, we are very isolated. In the north, we have the desert. In the south, there's the ice. In the west, we have the ocean. And in the east, we have the mountains. So geographically, we've always been very isolated. We didn't have, for many years, a natural kind of way for people to come. Now, of course, they come through the desert in the north, and they come through the mountains. Just because they're desperate to run away from where they are. We have immigration from other parts of South America. But in the past, as I said, it was kind of programmed immigration, right? From different European countries. And what the government wanted was European immigrants, right? They didn't want immigrants from other parts of South America. They wanted,
and Catholic.
Yes. And Catholic. Exactly.
Yeah, and Catholic. Yeah.
The same thing happened with Palestinians, for example. There was at the beginning of the 1900s, large Palestinian immigrations, but it was Catholic Palestinians, right? It wasn't Muslim Palestinians. Okay, so we were talking a little bit, sidetracked there. We were talking about what these candidates are saying to Chileans. Cast, right, this very right-wing candidate, he's talking about our nation, which is in an emergency, a very kind of a far-right propaganda. He says he admires Giorgia Meloni from Italy, so that's kind of what he's campaigning on, very anti-immigration, getting rid of crime, and these all forceful measures, right, to fix what they see or what the right sees as being broken in Chile. Whereas the left, this communist candidate, her campaign is the pursuit of equity, the pursuit of equal opportunities for everybody, improve social management, to address these systemic inequalities that Chilean has as a society. Her approach is integrative and technocratic, right? She looks to use public policy as a way of gaining inclusion and productivity in Chile. So that is a very typical, if you will, at least on paper, a very typical left and right-wing kind of program for each one of these two candidates. There's a little more detail here with a growth strategy from the right via private investment, reducing taxes, spending, cut public spending, to the typical thing that you would see in a right-winged program. Whereas the left program is building a social state, dignified living conditions, equality, fair, inclusive, sustainable growth, etc. Again, the typical things that you would see in a kind of a left-wing program. Now, the same thing that we were talking about, just in a little bit more of detail. We'll leave this for you if you want to look at the detail of the programs. I don't think it's very interesting for you to see the detail of the programs. What I do think is interesting, maybe for you to understand regarding these the Communist Party and the communists as Chilean politicians, is that there have been different periods of our history where the Communist Party has been banned in Chile, prohibited. As I understand, the Polish Constitutional Court did a couple of weeks ago. They banned the Communist Party in Poland.
It was a very
Chile also has
party. It existed on paper, I think. So
yes, I think so too. I think so too. That's. But it's a presentation of power, of symbolic power, anyhow. You know, by on behalf of the Constitutional Court, which is still an important show of power. What'll happen later, we'll see. But Chile has also banned their communist parties in different times during the 20th century. During the Pinochet regime, the Communist Party was banned. After democracy was recovered in the 90s, the Communist Party was back in the system and back in the game, in the political game. But there is still, I think, among the electorate, a very strong anti-communist sentiment. Although this candidate has tried to distance herself from traditional communism, right? And she has tried to show herself to the electorate as a social democrat, and her program as a social democratic program rather than a communist Marxist program. Now, that's been a kind of a game, she's had during her candidacy, where she said, yes, I am a communist, but I don't necessarily agree with all the communist doctrine, and I will not have a communist government. I will have a kind of a social democratic government. Unfortunately, most Chileans don't believe that. They believe that if she were to win the presidency, she would have a very left-leaning government, which is, I think, due to our past experiences, Chile's past experiences, and the world's past experiences in general with communism. Chileans don't like communists in power. That's kind of, a bit of a historic thing for us. It has come and gone. The Communist Party has had more support in some historic times and less in others, depending, I think, also on how communism has fared in the world. If communism in the world is up, in Chile, we kind of follow that same trend. When it's gone down in popular support, Chilean support for communism has gone down also. So it's kind of a story of following a little bit the tendencies of the world in that sense. Why are we then at the crossroads, or why do we have these two distinct paths? One to the right, to the very right, one to the left, to the very left. And I think that we've come to this point where the political center has kind of dissolved. There was not a viable political center candidacy, which I think is, at least during the last 30 or 40 years, has not occurred in Chile. We have definitely replayed this pendulum dynamic that Professor Astroza was explaining. We go to the left and then we come to the right. We go to the left and then we come to the right. But we've usually had a center candidate that's been important, but not this time. Right? The candidate that was kind of a center-leaning candidate got, I don't know, 13 or 14% of the votes. And these newcomers, like Parisi or Cast or Kaiser, which have a kind of ambiguous, well, not Kaiser, he's the far right, but Parisi with a kind of ambiguous program, he managed to get around 30% of the vote, was it, or 20% of the total vote? 20% of the total vote, which was surprising in a way, but not in the sense that Chileans are very unhappy with their governments in general. They're looking for more practical solutions to what they call their everyday problems, and have slowly or rapidly, I guess, began to distrust their politicians in a way, like Professor Astroza said, that mimics or imitates what the rest of the world is doing also. We are very emotional in our political campaigns. I think this has been the most emotional campaign we've had in the last 30 years. Candidates hurl all kinds of accusations against each other. When they debate on television, it is very aggressive. They talk over each other. They insult each other in a way that I think we haven't seen in a very, very long time in our democratic tradition. So I will stop now and hand over to you, and we'll be answering questions or comments that you may have regarding Chile, what's happening the rest of Latin America, if you'd like to know also.
Yes, thank you very much for the explanation of the whole spectrum of candidates, for the three faces of the Chilean right, and also for details on the peculiarities of the Chilean Communist Party. and its paper in the Chilean political system. Now, are there any questions about the election itself, or perhaps also the last couple of years under the Boric government and the changes such as migration or crime in Chile? Is there anyone interested in anything particular?
Yes, hello.
Yeah, there's
Can
a
you
question.
hear me?
Yes.
Yes, good. Yeah, thank you very much for the very interesting seminar. So I would like to maybe ask, what are your views or on maybe possible relationships, for example, with the United States? Because you mentioned a sort of a decline in public debate during this election. It's very emotional, very full of rhetoric, especially when you mentioned the far-right candidate that keeps mentioning getting rid of the crime, which is, in my opinion, pretty similar to what Trump is saying, that getting rid of the crime is the primarily like mover behind getting rid of immigration as a whole. So I would really like to maybe know your perspective on it, on possible relationships with the Trump administration in the United States.
Okay, thank you for the question. I will be say some ideas if Beatriz will add some another ideas. It's perfect. I remember when Donald Trump won the first presidency of United States, and the media asked me which kind of consequence I thought in this moment was the worst to the world. I remember I said the way to live the political life, because that was very, very aggressive, with an accent in the emotion of the people, with the fear to other, to the immigrant, to the Muslim, etc., and with an accent in the immigration, the security, in brief, the other people. And now I think this kind of a political life or political way to make the politics is a model or reference to another right parties. Is the case of the Chile, and in the same time another ideological party are most radical, that reaction to the aggressive or emotion manipulate to the far right than the far left also fall in the same vicious circle. And I think in this moment is the situation like that. And the new ambassador of the United States arrived 2 weeks ago with a very, very aggressive declaration the same day of the first round in our election, intervening in our democratic processes, that it's not possible if you think in international law or diplomacy or international relation, non-intervention in the internal affairs, but this ambassador start his period in Chile the no very good way, and it's the same. Some diplomat, Latin American diplomat or professor that I know, they say me in their country is the same. The ambassadors of United States, the discourse now is very, very aggressive in our country. And now we have the declaration, express declaration of the United States with the new security strategy, and Donald Trump now said they add a how do you say that in English? Colorario? I don't know how to say that in English.
They added a part to the Monroe Doctrine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then he said he speaks about our hemisphere. Our hemisphere is all the America, South America,
including us, right?
Including us. And he is the new interpretation of the Monroe Doctrine in 1823. And this is very, very, it's a problem for the Latin American and Caribbean countries, and especially in Latin America. Then I think José Antonio Cast or Janet Jara will have the problem with the United States. It's obviously that Janet Jara will have more problem than José Antonio Cast. José Antonio Cast is closer the United States, but he is soberanista. He's a far right. Then he supports strongly the sovereignty. It's very, very. This is the idea, the values of the right, far right, and if you are very, very sovereignist. How do you say?
Sovereignist. I don't know if that word exists in English.
Also, it's a concept within French souverainisme, which is sometimes used to refer to the Gauls, sort of right-wing nationalist.
Yeah,
it's a thing.
Then, if the President Donald Trump, in this new interpretation of Monroe Doctrine, he speaks about our hemisphere, where is the sovereignty? And this will be a very big problem now in Latin America and Caribbean, and also in Europe. You can see also in Europe the problem between Europe and United States with the new security strategy. Beatriz, I don't know if you want to.
If I can add something, I think part of your question was also regarding what is this thing about battling crime and fighting crime. Unfortunately, for us, and fortunately for the far right discourse, political discourse, we have in Chile, we have had an important rise in crime, but in organized crime. Right? Organized crime and drug trafficking. We've had national and foreign organizations kind of taking over and creating a web of organized crime that we did not have before 2018, maybe 2015. There were voices in all governments saying that if we didn't do something about what was, before the pandemic starting to form in Chile, there would be no way of stopping it. Unfortunately, the governments did not pay attention to that. And we do now have a problem with organized crime. Not general street crime, robbery, but the issues with organized crime and drug and people trafficking, which issues that we did not have some 8 or 9 years ago. So in a way, it's kind of fertile territory for all this anti-crime thing. A few days ago, in one of the debates, this far-right candidate, he says, over 1 million people have died in Chile due to have been murdered over the past year. That's absurd. 1 million people is, I don't know, 6% of the population. So they have this tool, right, that they can kind of play with the fear. And the fact that we do have this problem now, even the communist candidate recognized this in one of the debates. She said, yes, we do have a problem that we did not have before. What are we going to do about it? Well, she plans to do different things than this other candidate does, but it kind of it's like the perfect storm. We have this model of the far right, preaching about fighting crime, and we do have the problem of organized crime that we did not have before. So in a way, all the factual circumstances have come together for there to be a political kind of discourse in this sense.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for the exhaustive answers to those questions. And also, you have to remember that it's not only the case of Chile, where Trump's rhetoric and reinterpretation of the Moneda Doctrine is present. We have seen him de facto interfere in the Honduran elections, or the most expensive electoral campaign in history, which is giving $20 billion to the Argentinian Central Bank to support the monetary policy of Javier Milei, which, as US officials have said, and this can be found easily on the internet, was motivated by the subjective political interest, that is, propping up Javier Milei's regime, which also to some degree is perhaps far right, but there's not that much talk of sovereignty there, given his attitude towards the US. But that's another thing, and that's another country. Now, we have also another question here with another viewer here wanting to ask, so I'll leave her the floor for the question.
Yes, thank you very much. Hopefully you can hear me. Thank you very much for this presentation. It was really interesting. And I was especially curious about this idea or this new system that was introduced of mandatory voting. And I was curious if you could see any changes in the way the campaigns were being conducted, or maybe the candidates were behaving differently, or were had some sort of different tactics in order to convince this large group of new voters to vote for them, the voters that were previously, as you said, very skeptical of the political system. Did anything change, or maybe different groups joined the race? What was the difference, if any?
Bea, you and me, or me? Okay, I'm going to try to explain what I think, because I don't have a measures or evidence, methodological evidence about that. That I read the strategy in general try to attract the young voters. Why? Because they didn't go to vote before the vote is mandatory. Then the young voters rest in march of the people that decide who will be our representative. Then the campaign tried to attract the young voters with especially using the TikTok or Instagram, especially Instagram, but TikTok. TikTok here is not banned. TikTok is, I think, the most popular how to
social
say
network.
Social
Yeah,
network.
social network.
Yeah, social network in the young people. And José Antonio Cas started, I think he was the first who started with TikTok. And with
Probably, yes.
Yes, and with the song, very, very
with a slogan,
yeah,
and he had TikToks and videos and reels and Instagram, just
exactly.
targeting the younger voters.
And in another hand, you have a Franco Parisi, and Franco Parisi used Facebook with a program, a live program in Facebook, but his target was especially the people, the miners, the workers in the mines of Chile, because we have
in the north,
mines
yes.
in the north, and the target was the people like him, and
the common people,
the common people, right. And the people who didn't born in a
that weren't born into class, privilege or money,
yeah.
or hardworking people.
Yeah, and this kind of people, and he's really, really populist in the sense of he divided our society in the virtuous people and corrupted elite, and they represent the people against the corrupt elite. And the corrupt elite, for him, are the traditional parties, the government, the politician,
the right and the left.
Right. Yeah, the politician, and they catch a lot of the vote of this kind of people, that this voter, before the change of mandatory vote, didn't go to vote. Then yes, the answer is yes. They use a strategy, especially social network, and the message or emotion to catch these new voters. And I think they have a success, because José Antonio Cast and Franco Parisi and Johannes Kaiser, they had a good result finally in our first round, especially with the emotion, the angry, the desesperanza, how do you say that?
Discontent in general. Yeah.
Discontent in general. Then yes, the answer is yes. And they copy, they copy the strategy in the United States of Trump, or in another parties or movement, European movement, that use that. And for this reason, they use influencers or TikTokers, etc. They use that. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for the question, also for the fact that the phenomenon of Parisi was mentioned, because he was also a rather surprising candidate, the typical electoral dark horse, given the rather poor results that he was receiving in the pre-electoral polls. Although we have to remember that in Chile, 2 weeks before the date of the election, polling is illegal, which is rather
exactly. Yes.
Electoral law that's sort of unknown in Europe, I think, and quite surprising. Now, is there also anyone who'd like to ask about something, perhaps not that directly related to the elections itself, but Chile in general, because as we have the opportunity to talk to Chilean experts, there's also other questions about this fascinating countries that can be asked right now. Okay, you can see a question.
Yes, may I ask?
I would like, excuse me, Jan, I would like to add something about that the polls are banned in 15 days before the first round, and now one week before. It's ridiculous. In this moment, this decision in this prohibition in our country, because we receive the polls, confidential polls, by WhatsApp, by another ways, because the political parties or another people pay to these consultores.
The marketing companies. They pay to have polls conducted.
To have polls, and these polls we receive, but not all the people, but a privileged people receive this kind of polls, and some people publish these polls, and nothing happened.
Bit of
Nothing happened.
information.
It's neither ridiculous to have this prohibition.
It's a bit of an information black market, we can say.
Yeah.
Not even black. Just everybody hands it on. From WhatsApp to Instagram or whatever. They circulate anyhow.
Okay, there's also a question by Dr. Bolek here, so we'll hand her the floor.
Yes, thanks a lot. Thank you very much for all the comments and your presentations. And I would like to ask about the economic situation in Chile now, and what could be the impact of the economic condition on the results in the elections. And maybe another small question about the youth, so the young voters. How to assess their expectations and how they treat this instrument that the elections, the participation in the elections is for them. Yes, thanks a lot.
Bea, you start? Do you want to start?
Dale tú nomás. Yo me meto entre medio.
Okay, that is a paradox, because our economic situation now is not so bad. If you look the percent of PIB, PIB, how do you say el Producto Interno Bruto in English? Growth?
Gross domestic product.
GDP.
Yeah. It's not bad. The macro data in our country is good. We are growing, but the feeling of the people is that we are very, very bad. Very, very bad. Chile, and the concept or slogan, the opposition to Boric government is Chile se cae a pedazos. How to say that in English?
Falling apart. We're falling apart economically.
They repeat that all the time, and the people.
The candidates also said Chile se cae a balazos, which is Chile is falling to bullets shot, right? So,
maybe Kaiser, I think.
Yeah, it sounds like Kaiser or Castro.
Kaiser, yeah. And But it's not true. If you look the macro evidence is not true. We are better than another country in our continent. We growing economic. We have an economic growth better than Germany or better than another country in the world, but we have a problem with a education system, health system, or vivienda.
Housing.
We have a real structural problems. Then we are all the time against the government because our expectations are high because the candidate in the period of campaign, they promise a lot of things that when they are in the government, it's not possible to realize all that immediately, but the people want immediately. Then in general, we recovering our economical growing after the COVID. It's not so magnificent, but it's not bad. But the people,
I think, the people have blamed. I think there was the same thing that happened in the United States where they blamed, right, all this COVID and post-COVID inflation on the Biden government. The same thing has happened here. They've blamed all of this naturally occurring inflation after COVID on the government. And actually, it was just the general cycles of the economy in the world and some things that occurred during the pandemic that were not this government's doing in any way. And we did have for a couple of years high inflation that we were not accustomed to. So that was pretty tough also on the Chilean consumer, which kind of led to the idea that we were falling apart, right? But we're not. We have recovered our path, to economic growth. So I don't know. We have a very high level of foreign investment right now. I think some of the highest in the last 20 years. Yeah. But people don't see that. They don't value that. They just, they're, oh no, we're falling apart, basically. We have had unemployment also, a rise in unemployment. Again, the same thing that's occurred all over the world post-COVID. It's kind of a post-COVID adjustment for the world, but people don't see it that way. They just blame it on the government because it's just easier, Yeah. Oh yeah, it's the government's fault,
Yes, and what about the young voters and in general the expectations of the young people in Chile? Because I've been to Chile, I just remember maybe 3 times, and I always remember young people going to the streets and protesting and just demanding more.
Now they all want to be YouTubers, influencers, and live in foreign countries.
Yeah, and I saw some studies about who vote the young people. ¿Por quién votaron los jóvenes?
Who they voted for?
Who they vote for? And Franco Parisi and Johannes Kaiser, they catch a lot of young voters.
Yes, they do.
José Antonio Caz also, but Franco Parisi, because Franco Parisi, for example, one of target of Franco Parisi was where the young people that do tanning se llama, Bea? Eso de los autos que corren y roncean.
Ah,
How do you say that?
they're like clandestine car races.
Yeah, I don't know if you know that, because they are a clubs, clandestine clubs, that they take the cars and they turn around, and they are a urban culture around the cars and the cars enchulados. How do you say that?
Yeah, the tuning and
Tuning. That is.
Painting cars, and
Then
it's kind of an urban culture thing.
yeah. Then in his strategy, we can find a different target, and a lot of young people feel that Franco Parisi represents their feeling, their emotion, etc. And he spoke about meritocracy.
Meritocracy, the rule of those who have the biggest merits, whatever that means, because it's
right.
Yeah.
The myth of the self-made man, the hardworking person,
entrepreneur people, liberal people in the values. Then it's different that Kaiser or Juan Antonio Cast, because in the values he's more liberal with the abortion or the divorce or this kind of values. He's more liberal. Then he got a lot of vote. No the Janet Jara ni Evelyn Matei. Evelyn Matei represents the right that government in this country tries. And finally, she obtained the very bad result, and she arrived in the fifth place.
Fifth place. In fifth place.
The fifth place in the. That is terrible for her. She never
expected, I think.
Atrajo a los jóvenes, enganchó con los jóvenes. How do you say that?
She never attracted young people.
Attracted young people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also important to know that, for example, if we take a young person in Chile, for example, somebody under, let's say, 35 years, all they remember from politics is the alternating power between the Socialist Party and the UDI, right?
Yeah.
Lagos, Bachelet, Piñera, Piñera, and Boric, who, well, was like the Socialist Party in that he also wanted to get away with neoliberalism, but at the end of the day, he had to resign for a lot of the more radical sounding ideas. So in the end, he ended up being a bit like Lagos, for whom people had a lot of expectations. So it's not surprising that people see that neoliberalism will prevail, so they don't really mind if Parisi is also saying all those kind of 80s neoliberal dogmas like being a self-made man, which is sociology says that this is a bit of a myth.
Right.
But he is not from the Socialist Party, which
total myth. Yeah.
Did not change much, nor from the UDI, which was also a traditional party. So I think it's also sort of the idea that he's a new face, yes, and doesn't mind what the program is, but he's not from the same two parties. They offer the same things for the people.
Yeah.
So I think we're a bit of we have to finish off since it's getting a bit late here in Poland, and everybody's also got to do their duties tomorrow, Friday. But thank you very much for giving us the time and telling us about the details of the Chilean election, the Chilean political situation, also a bit of a social background on the youth and the atmosphere that's in there. We'll be following the election on Sunday. We'll see the results on Monday. Most probably a victory by José Antonio Cast. So a return to the right, the eternal Chilean process. And also we hope that in the future we'll be also able to conduct similar meetings, because there's also other things to discuss about Chile. A thing that I, for example, find very interesting is how climate change is affecting this country. And climate change is unfortunately a problem that's going to transcend all the national borders and also affect other parts of the world. But there's also more than that, migrant crisis, tons of interesting things. So thank you very much for your attention. Thank you also, Dr. Bolek, for coordinating the meeting. And thanks to all of you who attended this meeting. And I hope you had a good time. And, well, have a good day, or have a good evening, and goodbye to everybody.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you very
Bye.
much. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.